Hey everyone, so this is going to be a personal video, but this is kind of what I've been dealing with and what's been going on. It's probably going to be a longer video because there has been a lot of stuff happening, but I have watched a couple videos like this, having gone through everything in the last few months, and I know that it helped me. I reached out to a forum as well, and so I might as well get into it, I guess. In June, and as you can tell by the title, you already know what I'm going to be talking about. So in June, I had started feeling sick, probably around June 7th, I believe, because I marked it on the calendar that I had had a couple headaches and stomach ache, and so for about 3 or 4 weeks my stomach was really bugging me. I wasn't really throwing up, I just felt nauseous all the time, and yeah, and so I was like, oh no, something's wrong, I probably have ulcers, I don't know, and finally after about 3 or 4 weeks I decided that I needed to make a doctor appointment to figure out what was wrong, and just out of precaution, because I didn't want to be an idiot, I took a pregnancy test, not wanting to walk into the doctor's office and embarrass myself, and it turned out it was positive. So my husband and I went down to the pharmacy and got another test just to be sure, and he was over the moon and I was freaking out for about a day or two. And we went to the doctor and they confirmed, in the doctor's office they did a test and confirmed that I was pregnant, and our primary care doctor recommended that we see an OBGYN who was also a primary care doctor in the same office. So we were going to wait a couple days and see another doctor to start talking to him about what we were going to do. And I think about 2 days after, when I finally told my dad about it, I was elated. I started getting really excited, and I told my dad all about it, and he was totally excited for me. We started telling a couple close friends and family members. We didn't want to tell everybody. We were a little nervous still. And we didn't know how far along we were. We figured that I'd been sick since the beginning of June, and once we knew what it was, I started reading up on ways to combat the morning sickness with ginger and, crackers and this and that. My husband put up a little bulletin board in the bathroom, so it had a little card that he wrote me. The night that we found out we were pregnant, he went out and got me a little card and like a jar of pickles. So that was really cute, and then he created kind of like a baby board in the bathroom, and so we got a little onesie at Target, and one of my friends got me one, kind of a unisex. She also got me a little frame for the ultrasound for when you finally get your first one, you put it in the frame, and it has little things you can change it out, like it's a boy, it's a girl, it has little, customizable stuff. So we were getting really super excited about it, and when we saw the OBGYN, and he did an exam, he was like, I would guess you're maybe probably 5 or 6 weeks. I don't have normal periods, so I've always been irregular. I started like when I was 12, and it was like every 2 months, every 3 months, once a month, every 2 weeks. It was all over the board. So when I was 19, I went on birth control to regulate that, and I've been on birth control pretty much ever since. I went off of it last year just because I'd been in a stable relationship for a long time, and my migraines were really bad, and all the doctors kept saying, your migraines are probably from the birth control, so let's get you off of that and see if it helps. They have gotten a lot better, by the way, since then. So anyhow, the doctor decided that we should have an ultrasound, even though it was still early. Normally they make you wait, till probably the 2nd month, but that's a lot of the time for women who are, once a month, every 3 or 4 weeks they have a period, and they know they conceived within a certain amount of time. So the doctor wanted to see how far along we were, and also, that gives us some options with if we wanted to do any prenatal testing or anything like that for genetic disorders and whatnot. So we had our ultrasound on July 7th, and we went in and they didn't see anything on the screen, and so the girl was like, well, she wasn't allowed to really say anything. Our doctor had said that basically it could have been that we were too early along to tell, but usually by 5 to 6 weeks you should be able to see something on the ultrasound. So we had a topical ultrasound and an internal ultrasound, and the girl didn't tell us anything, and she said, I'm going to send this to your doctor, and there'll be somebody to come in and talk to you. Our doctor didn't have ultrasound set up in his office, which was kind of frustrating. So we went to our doctor, they sent us back to our doctor. It wasn't somebody like a doctor at the ultrasound lab that told us. They sent us back to our doctor. So this was like a 4-hour process between the ultrasound, going back to the doctor's office, waiting. And finally our doctor came in and told us that the ultrasound showed a gestational sac, but not a viable pregnancy. Normally there should have been a yolk or a fetal pole, and it didn't show anything. And he said the gestational sac was about 6 weeks, 4 days. So we probably were at least 6 or 7 weeks along. We don't know when we lost the embryo or what happened. And he basically said that he was going to have me go get a blood test, and in 2 days have another blood test just to monitor my HCG levels and see where I was at. And he was pretty sure that I had a blighted ovum. Basically, for some reason, the embryo, the fetus disappears and your body reabsorbs it, and you're left behind, the gestational sac or the start of the placenta is left behind. And it was just pretty devastating, I guess. We were in shock. We didn't know what to think. We were kind of not positive that we were getting 100% like you lost the pregnancy. We didn't know what was going on. So we went and did a blood test. We went and did another blood test 2 days later, and the doctor called that afternoon and said that my levels were dropping. So I think I went from, I want to say 21,000 to like 19,000. So they were dropping pretty quick. He said that because they were still so high, it would take quite a while to miscarry, but that he was pretty sure that was going to happen. And he said, that'll probably happen in the next week or two. It'll be like a heavy period, and there'll probably be some cramping, and that if there was, basically if you're going through more than one pad an hour, to give them a call. So we came home and we were just like, holy crap, And I guess miscarriage is like a 1 in 4 chance. I'm very calm right now because I've cried about this a bunch. But miscarriage is a 1 in 4 chance. So like 25% of pregnancies in miscarriage, which I had no clue. I've never heard of a blighted ovum before. I know that people miscarry, but I'd never heard of something like this. I thought it was, something like the baby's heart stops beating or something like that, but I hadn't ever heard of this. So I joined a forum online, and I talked to some other women who'd gone through a similar situation, and that's been very helpful. But the complications have just kept coming. So this was July 9th that we've got the final 100%, unfortunately we lost the pregnancy. So we took down our little board and got ourselves kind of prepared for the loss. And for me, it felt like, well, gosh, I was super happy and I was feeling sick, and I never got confirmation that I was even pregnant, really. They told us, yes, you were pregnant and you lost it. But, I didn't get to see anything on the screen. I didn't get to feel the baby kick. It just felt like I've been sick all this time for nothing, So, on the 18th of July, which was a Monday, I noticed, I had started finally bleeding a little bit. And that lasted for a few days, and it was very light. I normally am not a person who has heavy periods anyway, but it was very light, and I was like, okay, I don't really know what to expect here. And then on, I think, Wednesday, I started getting cramps, and I never get cramps, so that was a new experience. So I thought, okay, my body's kind of doing what it's supposed to, I guess. On Thursday, my husband and I met up with a friend and her family, and he hadn't met her before. We were getting together with her husband and kids so we could all kind of meet each other. She was a high school friend that I've reconnected with, and I've been hanging out with her, and he hasn't had a chance yet. So we all went out to a park, and then we went for frozen yogurt. And we were sitting down having frozen yogurt. I went to the restroom, I came back, everything was fine. And as I was sitting there with them, all of a sudden I felt kind of this gush. And it didn't feel right. It kind of when you see on movies or TV about a woman's water breaking, that's what it felt like. And so I got up real quick, and I went to turn around and go inside the restaurant to use the restroom, and I got about 3 steps in the door, and I felt another gush. And I looked down, and I was wearing a long shirt with leggings, and there was just blood everywhere. There was blood on the floor, there was blood dripping down my legs, my pants were soaked, I had, it was awful. And I was torn in the middle of this place, trying to figure out, does anybody know what's going on? Looking at everybody sitting outside, wondering if I should run back out and grab my husband or my friend, but not wanting to embarrass myself further, and how traumatic. And so I turned and just went for the restroom. And when I got in there, I started kind of breathing heavy and freaking out. I was crying, and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I can't get back up and walk back out because it's everywhere. And I didn't have my phone. I didn't grab my purse. I just rushed into the restroom. So the first person who walked in the door happened to be an employee after about 2 or 3 minutes. And I kind of called for her to go get help. I said, I have a group of people sitting right outside the front door. Can you please tell them to come in? And not thinking like to give her names or any information. I was just kind of in panic. So she came back in a second time, and I told her, my friend's name. She's sitting with a bunch of little kids. Our dog was with us, so he was at the table. I'm like, it's little kids and a dog and a bunch of people. And my husband and my friend both came in at the same time. And so, like I said, this is kind of a lot of information, but I think at that time I had passed a large mass. So I'm not sure if there had been blockage and everything just came out all at once, but I passed a large mass, I would say about like that. And I was, nervous. I'm like, there's a lot of blood I'm losing. I didn't know how I was going to get back home, if we should go to the emergency. So my husband came in and helped me clean up as best as I could. And my friend kind of guarded the door. The employees there, basically, one of them stood outside and just said, the bathroom's in use. I don't think they really knew what was going on, but they were polite enough to say, like, these people need time. Obviously, something is wrong. And I guess my friend said that in the meantime, people were commenting on the blood. There was like a trail of blood from the door to the bathroom. So they were like, did somebody have a nosebleed, or what's happening, or why is there blood on the floor? So it was noticeable. I guess my husband said it was kind of scary when he walked in. He immediately knew something was wrong. So he went to the next door place and got a bunch of clothes. He got me a t-shirt and some shorts, and we rinsed out my clothes as best we could and threw them in a bag. And we just made a beeline for the car. So we got in the car, and as we were sitting in the car, I'm like, I don't feel safe going home. I want to go to the hospital. So we went to the emergency room, and as soon as we walked in the emergency room door and they were checking us in, I felt it again, like another bleh. So I ran to the restroom and caught it in time. And so a nurse came and gave me like a stack of pads, and we let them know what was going on. The front attendant was a bitch. She was this really grouchy lady, and she was just not helpful. This is about 9 o'clock at night, I guess, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and the ER was packed. People had been waiting 3 or 4 hours. We weren't sure how long we were going to have to wait, and pretty much every 5 or 10 minutes I'd feel another one of those gushes, and I'd have to run to the restroom. And so I was really nervous and panicking about how much blood I was losing. My husband felt helpless because he couldn't really do anything other than wait. So we called our OBGYN, and we told him what was going on. And he called the hospital and asked if they could bump us up and see us sooner. So I think we waited about an hour and a half, and then we got in. In the meantime, running to the restroom back and forth and talking to the bitchy, grouchy, horrible, awful nurse at the front of the check-in desk. Once we got in the back in the room, my dad had come down. We called him and let him know what was going on. So my dad drove down. So he was sitting in the waiting room and checking on the dog in the car. And the people in the emergency were very nice. Everybody was very friendly. When they finally did an exam, they said it looked like everything had already happened, and that the cervix was closing back up, and that the worst of it was over. They gave us a shot of, I think, Demerol to help with the pain of the cramps, because they were really bad, and I don't know what that normally feels like. I never have cramps. They gave us a shot of Mithergen, which is supposed to help bleed where it needs to bleed and stop the bleeding if it's done. And we didn't get out of the ER till 4 in the morning. So by the time we left there, it was very late. We stopped at a 24-hour pharmacy to get some antibiotics and Mithergen, which is supposed to help, like I said, with the bleeding. And we came home and thought, okay, we're good, we're done. So that was on July 21st. I'm going to try to keep talking faster because it's getting long. So since then, there had been bleeding ever since. So I didn't know how long you're supposed to go through that. Some people online had said it was like a 4-week process. So we waited until about the 6th week, and then I started to feel like I was getting an infection. I didn't really have a fever, but I could tell something was wrong. And this was like pretty much having a period for 6 weeks straight. So I finally called the doctor and I said, this has been going on for 6 weeks. I don't know what's supposed to be happening here. And the doctor was like, oh, well, you shouldn't have, waited this long to call. And I was like, well, you should have checked in on me or told us, what to expect. Like, we had no clue. So at 6 weeks, we went into the doctor. He did an exam. He gave me an antibiotic for infection and said that we had caught it like just at the very beginning of the infection. And he said, since you've been bleeding for 6 weeks, that means there's still material that you haven't passed. So I'm going to give you progesterone for 10 days. And when you stop taking the progesterone, it should start a period. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I've been bleeding for all this time. That means I'm going to bleed another week. And how much of a guarantee is there for this working? And he said, well, I don't know. He said it usually works. He's like, I really have great success with progesterone. So he sent us to get an ultrasound to confirm that there was still tissue left over. And the ultrasound technician obviously doesn't tell us anything. So we get a call. And I was kind of thinking at this point, I'd rather just go get a surgical procedure to take care of it. But we didn't even get the option. Basically, our doctor called us at the ultrasound office and said they just faxed over the ultrasound images and I'm going to give you progesterone. It was a nurse. It wasn't even our doctor who called us and said, we're going to have you take progesterone, go pick it up at the pharmacy, and after 10 days you should pass the rest of the material. So I'm like, okay, well, we didn't get to even talk to our doctor. We didn't get any options. We've been paying a $20 copay every time we have to see somebody, the ultrasound, the blood work, the pharmacy, copays. So this is getting pretty expensive for us. The emergency was a $100 copay. So I started taking the progesterone, and after 10 days I stopped taking it, and I had a little bit of heavier bleeding, a little bit of lighter bleeding while I was taking it, a little bit of heavier bleeding once I stopped. But 5 or 6 days after stop taking it, nothing's happening, like nothing's passing. So I called the doctor again, and he has us come in again, just to basically physically look at us and say, okay, it's gotten to a point where I can't help you anymore. I don't do DNCs. I'm going to send you to another office to do it. So keep in mind, we found out at the end of June we were pregnant. We found out July 9th we lost the pregnancy. July 18th the bleeding started. And this is going into September. So he had me go see another doctor. I couldn't just go get a DNC. I had to meet with the doctor and have a physical sit down face-to-face to talk to them about what was going on. This is an office where they specialize in OBGYN and gynecology, so it was specifically for that. Every room has an ultrasound, which is very nice, so I know who we'll be seeing next time around. And basically she said, okay, here's the situation. You shouldn't have been bleeding this long. It should have only been a week or two. I don't know why your primary doctor or your previous doctor didn't do anything prior. This is way too long for you to be going through this emotionally and physically. And so they scheduled a DNC. And so today is Sunday. I had a DNC on Friday. We went in at 5:30 in the morning. They did a blood test just to make sure, like, I definitely wasn't pregnant. They did a urine and blood test. In the meantime, a long time ago, we had to get a RhoGAM shot because I'm negative and my husband is positive for blood types. And so there's a chance that when you miscarry, which wouldn't have been an issue till we actually delivered the baby if it was full term, it develops antibodies, basically like my blood attacks my husband's blood, which is part of the baby's blood. And so if you get pregnant a second time, it can hinder that pregnancy, the body attacks. So they give you a shot to prevent that. We had that shot way back in July. They gave us another shot this go around just to be sure. But basically, the DNC, I can't believe how easy it was. I can see why a lot of the women choose to do that right away, because you don't have to wait for a miscarriage or wonder if you're going to hemorrhage or, if you go through something like I went through. I almost wish, knowing what I know now, 2 months ago, I would have just opted for a DNC, but surgery also has its risks. So we went at 5:30. The procedure was at 7:30. The worst part of the procedure was the IV. They numb you with a shot, which hurts and stings. They put the IV in, which is uncomfortable, and then they start you on antibiotics, which feel very cold going up your arm. But when they wheeled me into the surgical room, they give you oxygen, and they give you something through the IV to put you out, and I don't remember anything. So I woke up coming out of anesthesia, and I felt fine. I felt groggy and tired, but really no cramping, no pain. And and I haven't had any since. So it's been 2 days and I feel like normal. I came home and I was tired just because I hadn't slept very well the night before. I was nervous, but I really can't say enough about at least the doctor that I had and the hospital I went to and how easy it was. And pretty much for me, Saturday the bleeding has almost stopped. So yesterday and today I haven't really noticed anything, which is the first time in 2 months. So I feel like I finally have peace of mind that this is behind me. I'm supposed to go in on Monday for a follow-up with the doctor that I saw for the DNC, who I'm hoping, as long as our insurance covers her, I'm going to continue seeing as an OBGYN. So that would mean that we're officially trying to get pregnant now. We were kind of not trying before, I guess, but we weren't actively trying. So my only concern really is my irregular periods. So I know that she had mentioned possibly taking progesterone or Provera to help me regulate. Obviously birth control helps you regulate, but then you can't get pregnant. So I don't want to wait 3 cycles. For me, that would be close to 9 months. I'm hoping that once I see her at the end of this month, she can recommend something that we can have a few regular periods and then hopefully in December or January actually start trying. So that is the hell that I have been through. It has been an emotional nightmare. Basically, there's a whole lot of questions like why? Why did this happen? The pity party that I've been throwing for myself. I kept asking, like, what could I have possibly learned from this that I couldn't have learned had we kept the pregnancy? You know, had the pregnancy been full term and not had to go through the loss. When I finally kind of wrapped my head around being pregnant, it's the first time that I felt like 100% happy since my mom passed away. So it's been really frustrating and difficult to kind of tell myself like this happened for a reason. My husband has been really upset. He's cried several times. He's like, I feel like I was able to give you something that made you so happy and then it got taken away from us. So it's been rough. I can't imagine, you know, especially losing a child. Like for us, this was just something we got used to for 2 or 3 weeks, and you know, not that it makes it any better or worse, but I can't imagine losing a child that you grow to love and spend time with. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like, you know, if God's up there with his little book of destiny and fate, I feel like from everything that I've been through, from losing my mom to going through this, you know, that he got it wrong or something. So it's been difficult. I'm looking forward to finally feeling normal and getting life back in order. My birthday is Friday, so I will be 32, which seems very old now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I didn't realize that I was hitting that time where, you know, 35 after that kind of pregnancy is a little more difficult. So I'm hoping to keep myself in good condition and eating healthier and things like that for the next time around. I know that I was eating healthier than I ever have when I was pregnant. I had like a little bulletin board with a meal schedule and healthy snacks. So that's kind of what I've been dealing with. And for those of you who, you know me in my regular life, some of you know what's been going on, some of you don't. And I've kind of been hesitant to talk about it. So I'm just hoping that things go back to kind of a normal, that I can find some happiness after all this is over, and you know, that the next time around everything will go smoothly and go okay. But if this can help anybody who's going through the same thing, with some information of what to expect or what to be prepared for, or just make them feel like they're not alone, yeah. So the forum I joined with, I basically just did a search for blighted ovum forum, and it's miscarriage support, trying to get pregnant support. So that's been very, very helpful. So I just wanted to share. It's a little more personal, and thank you for watching and being kind and gentle with me. I've been kind and gentle to myself. I've been trying to really kind of pamper myself and take care of myself. It's just, nobody wants to go through that. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. So thank you for listening, and I hope all of you are doing well, and I will talk to you guys soon.